Hello again and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the second part of this week's Super Rugby show. Of course, yesterday we had a look at what happened last weekend in round 13. Today we're back to have a look at round 14 and the 8 matches we have in our final round of Super Rugby before we take a look at the international June window, which I cannot wait to get underway. International rugby returning back to its glory. A long time since we've seen it down in the Southern Hemisphere. But before we get on to that, we have a little round of Super Rugby we need to get through first. So let's take a look at that. The 8 matches for round 14. 2 sides having a bye. They are the Reds and the Sharks, who we will not be seeing this weekend. The 8 matches, though, does kick off on Friday night, Westpac Stadium in Wellington, where 2 sides who had a bye last weekend are in action. The Hurricanes versus the Highlanders. Now, as I said, both sides on the bye last weekend, so a bit of a week off, and really they need it coming into this match as well. The Highlanders before the bye were absolutely in deadly touch. They looked phenomenal before they were away for a weekend. On the other side, the Hurricanes, they were in a bit of strife, if you remember, 2 weeks ago with those players breaking a late night curfew. They're all back, along with Captain Dane Cole. So a little reinforcements coming into this Hurricanes side, putting them back up to full strength. But I think where this game is going to be decided will be to 2 players with the number 10s on their back. The battle between Sopoaga and Barrett. That's going to be the big one for me, and you really can't compete at the moment with the way Lima Sopoaga is playing. His goal kicking, his in-play kicking, his tactical and attacking play kicking has just been sublime throughout the season. I've given him the nudge over Beauden Barrett, and I've given the Highlanders the nudge as well. 29-12 over the Hurricanes to kick round 14 underway. Following that one, we're off to Australia, Allianz Stadium for the Waratahs versus the Chiefs. Now, it just seems like the gulf between the Australian sides and the New Zealand sides is getting quite big now, especially the way the teams have been playing in recent weeks. We look back to round 13 last weekend when the Crusaders really dealt with the Waratahs fairly easily as well. The Waratahs seem to still be pitching their tent in struggle street and are really having a hard time getting back up to where they're expecting themselves to be, where everyone expects them to be, but they're nowhere near that at all. I think the Chiefs, much like last weekend against the Rebels, will only have to play at their best for 10-15 minutes. They could possibly put this one to bed very quickly as well. A little short burst like that, 3-4 tries, it really does destroy the morale of their opponents. And the way the Waratahs are gone, I just can't see them having that fight back to get back into the game. And for that reason, really, the way the Chiefs are playing, how well they're attacking, and the struggle that the Waratahs still seem to be on, although they show glimpses maybe of going up, they just fall and slide back down, and they just seem to be stuck in a rut at the moment that they can't come out of. So many reasons why, but the Chiefs I have on top of this one, and I'm picking it might be quite a deadly margin as well. 43-16, Chiefs over the Waratahs. We're over to Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Port Elizabeth for our 3rd match of the weekend, and this is one that has me slightly concerned. It's the Kings versus the Jaguars. Now, normally, I'd say Jaguars all the way will thrash the Kings. No problem whatsoever. It'll be one-sided, and we'll see the Argentinian franchise get a much-needed boost of confidence ahead of their international window as well, which most of their side will be participating in. But I've really lost confidence in this Jaguars outfit. They just haven't delivered like many people, like myself, expected. I really had high hopes and big expectations for this Jaguars side, but we have to look at their opponents. The Kings were so bad versus the Sharks, didn't score a single point and just didn't look at all in the match whatsoever. The Jaguars on the other side of the ledger, they got very heavily beaten It was late on, though, against the Lions that they got put away, and they did fight pretty well for a good 50-60 minutes of that match, and I think if they can take that kind of form and put into this match versus the Kings, I really think they should take them quite easily, but I'm wary of this Kings attack, which does come up every now and then. It does have that capability to get points on the board, but I'm going to stay with my heart for probably the last time this season that we'll be able to look at the Jaguars and say, yeah, they should win this matchup, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick my head out on it for the Jaguars. 33-17 over the Kings. God, if they lose this, it's going to be an absolute abysmal season for the Jaguars. Despite what they've done, they have to win this match. Moving back to New Zealand, now we have the Blues up against the Crusaders in Eden Park as well. Big home game for the Blues as well, as they finally make their way back home following a very long and arduous road trip away for the Blues. They're finally back at their beloved Eden Park, and well, they've got visitors that most teams at this stage of the competition do not want to see at their doorstep, and that is the Crusaders. Now, the Crusaders have one man coming back from his suspension, and that is Nemani Nadolo. Now, what a player to bring back, and the way that the Crusaders have been playing to slot a man like that back in, it makes him go from a pretty tough prospect to an absolutely daunting prospect. The chances the Blues have of this one, I don't think, are very high. The Crusaders are in white-hot form, and they've just got their best attacking weapon back. That means only bad things for the Blues. The Blues, I just don't think they're at that level of class that we've seen from the other New Zealand sides, particularly the Highlanders, the Chiefs, and the Crusaders. They really are a whole level above what we've seen from almost the rest of the competition, bar a couple of the South African sides like the Lions, the Bulls, and the Sharks, I guess, and the Stormers, have shown glimpses that they can play the ball at that level. But this one here just seems like it's going to be Crusaders all the way. The Blues get anything from this, I think they're going to have an absolute blinder, and all of their attacking weapons are going to have to be absolutely on song. Their forward pack is going to have to stand up, and we're going to have to see some magnificent play from players like Ihaia West that to really spark this Blues side, and the Crusaders will have to play their worst game of the decade. I can't see it happening, and I've got the Crusaders coming away 37-22 over the Blues. Convincing enough for the Canterbury franchise. Over to Australia we go, where the Brumbies are at home, and they're getting a visit from the Sunwolves. So the Sunwolves, we've seen recently, a team that will always fight to the death, to the bitter end, and that's something we have to expect from them against the Brumbies. And I really do hope that they'll throw the challenge down to the Brumbies, a side that, like the Waratahs, hasn't really delivered to the expectation from Australia, especially what they really see them achieving. They should be up there fighting at the top with the New Zealand sides, especially the Waratahs and the Brumbies. They're not doing that. I want the Sunwolves to really go and have a good dig at this, because I think if they're ever going to have a chance, it's going to be this week against the Brumbies. Now, I think come the end of the day, though, the Brumbies should have too much quality to fall to the Sunwolves. I think they'll have enough to get themselves over the line, but I really do see this becoming an entertaining matchup, especially if the weather's good and the Sunwolves have a nice day. The Brumbies are coming off the bye as well, and you've got to think that they had to really hammer home where they have to improve, and they had to force themselves to get better at the areas that they've been shocking at this season as well. They need to be more open to new attacking options as well, because really relying on that maul isn't working for them all season. Teams are working that out, and they've just become a bit one-dimensional, and teams have worked out how to take out the Brumbies. The Sunwolves, maybe they haven't got to that step yet, but I really think this is their chance, and really, if you give the Sunwolves an opening, you do it at your peril, because they are a team that will take their chances no matter the opponent. I've scored the Brumbies coming out on this one on top, 31-15 over the Sunwolves, but I really hope it's an entertaining fixture with some good running rugby weather as well. We make our way over to Newlands, where the Stormers are back at home and they're up against the Cheetahs. And, well, the Cheetahs, I have to say, this season has turned into a fairly poor one. It started off with a bit of promise, but it quickly fell away into disappointment, and now really it all looks bad news for the Cheetahs. The Stormers, they've just come out of a really big brawl, and I think they'll be battle-hardened and really raring to go for this matchup because they will want to bounce back. They'll be very determined to bounce back and hit this match with some form that they showed fairly decent touch last weekend against the Bulls. They fell short. They will want to take 5 points here against the Cheetahs, and the Cheetahs we've seen throughout the season do not have the consistency anymore to really trouble a team like the Stormers, and I think the Stormers should well and truly run away with this result. Should be far too good, and I have them 28-9 over the Cheetahs, who will most likely fade away throughout these last weeks after the international break, and maybe reevaluate things for next year where they show some promise. And they could always get better. They're almost there. Much like the two teams we see in the final round, the Rebels and the Force, they're almost there as well. They could be challenging, but it's going to take a little bit more time for those sides. Two teams who aren't taking any more time to reach their potential are the Bulls and the Lions, and they meet in Loftus Versfeld in Pretoria for the second to last matchup of the weekend, and this is going to be a cracker. I really hope it is. Two sides who can defend pretty well. Their attack is very, very structured and executed brilliantly. Attacking weapons throughout their backline that will have a go, have a dash, keep the ball alive. Don't let it go to ground. They'll take every single chance they can muster. We've seen the Lions last weekend were on fire, and if they can repeat that, it could be one hell of a matchup between these two sides. The Bulls, we've seen last weekend just how good their hardline defence can be. And if they can get that counter-attack going, they could really be a big threat. And it's going to be interesting because the Lions, very much a very good counter-attack side as well. And two teams, similar kind of styles. I think the Lions may be a slightly better attacking outfit, but the Bulls may nudge it defensively. It is something that could be quite a spectacle. I hope, again, the weather is fantastic for this matchup, because if it's a hard ground, no dew or rain or wetness whatsoever, this could be an absolute stunning matchup between these two sides. And I hope the Lions go absolutely hell for leather as well and unleash their full repertoire of attack. What they will be without is Elton Yantes. Now, he is a huge player to how this Lions team operates. My question will be, how will that affect them? I think, personally, it will affect them quite a lot, but I think they have enough class to stick it together in this matchup, and I like the Lions, and I'm still going to pick them to win, despite not having Elton Yantes, but I will be a bit closer. 24-18, Lions over the Bulls is my pick. How do they replace someone like that at fly half? That is going to be the decisive part of the match, who and how they replace that fly half position. Final match of the weekend is back in Australia, and it is at Amy Park, and bizarrely at 6 o'clock PM New Zealand time on a Sunday, which is kind of weird because we haven't seen those too much. Only in like Easter weekend and Anzac weekend we saw some Sunday matches, but we got another one here, and I'm not one to complain. It's going to be hard to remember that it's actually on though, but it's kind of a shame that the Super Rugby round will end with two struggling lower end kind of sides. You know, it'll be a great memory to see that Bulls-Lions match as the final game of the weekend. These two sides showed a bit of promise early on, but they've really fallen to that subpar level that we expect them to be at. The Rebels, they had that little battle for the top of the table. That's long over now. They won't be fighting for that much more unless they get some late season form once again. As for the Force, where they're missing one man who could ultimately decide this match by himself, Hodgson won't be there. That'll really affect their forward pack. That'll affect their leadership. And it could send them into a bit of disarray because he is really such a critical key part of this Force side. If we've learned anything from this season, from these two sides, it is that the future does promise to be a bit brighter for them. We've seen the Rebels challenging for top spot. We've seen the Western Force, despite not winning at home, they've been a bit more of a threat to sides. They've gone into matches and challenged. They've shown what they're capable of. So it is a bit better, and I'm sure both of these two sides will enjoy plenty of rest over the international period as well, because I don't know if there's going to be too much representation in the Wallaby side from these two teams that will actually get run on time in their international month off. So that is the final match of the weekend. My pick for that one is the Rebels to come out on top of the Force. 29-17 is my pick for that to the Rebels. It will be a decent match. I hope these two sides do throw the ball around, give it a bit of that air, give it a bit of that afternoon rugby feel that most rugby fans always enjoy to watch, and end this stanza of Super Rugby on a high, happy, exciting note that we can go into the international month feeling absolutely raring to go and not bored to death by a dull affair between those two Aussie sides. Alright, that wraps me up for this preview of round 14 matches for Super Rugby. It is the final preview before international rugby kicks off, so we'll be having a look at those next week as well to see what we have lining up for our international sides. But until then, thank you for tuning in and watching. Hope you've enjoyed. As always, get your picks in for who you think is going to win the matches this weekend. As always, we'll have a bit of a tally at the end of the week next week, and we will have a tally up, see who got the best picks, and of course the winner will get a special mention on the review video next week. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all next time. Until then, take care.